Hi! Today's lesson is all about idioms and the idioms that we use in everyday English conversations. Now I'm going to be focusing on the ones that are the most popular and the ones that people tend to use most frequently. And the ones that I'll be talking about in this video you will hear being used in the workplace and also in social situations, so they can really be used anywhere. So let's get started with the first one, which is the cart before the horse, which means to do things in the wrong order. It simply means to do things with the wrong set of priorities. Obviously, we know that the horse would always go before the cart, so by saying the cart before the horse, this is making the point that things are happening in the wrong order. And here's an example of how we would use this idiom. We could say, Sheila has already decided on her wedding date, but she hasn't yet found a boyfriend. I think she's putting the cart before the horse. A fish out of water means to feel awkward and uncomfortable in a specific situation. If you find yourself in a situation where you feel very uncomfortable and it just doesn't feel right at all, then we would use this idiom of feeling like a fish out of water. It might be a new school, a new workplace, or any new environment, and if it just doesn't feel right, then this idiom is the perfect one to describe how you're feeling. An example of how we could use this is if we say, John felt like a fish out of water in London. He had lived in the countryside for most of his life and found it very difficult to adapt to being in such a large city. Head in the clouds means to be quite naive and disconnected from reality. This can be used to describe someone who is considered to be perhaps a little bit out of touch, or someone who has dreams that are considered to be a little bit unrealistic. So for example, Janine must have her head in the clouds if she thinks she can buy a plane ticket from London to Sydney for less than £200. The next one is bury your head in the sand, which means to avoid and refuse to deal with an unpleasant situation. As you can see in this picture, this really kind of sums it up. This idiom actually originates from the reputation that ostriches have of hiding their heads whenever they are faced with the possibility of an attack by predators. So the burying their head in the sand is actually a bit of a myth, but it's likely to have originated from people watching them with their heads in the ground whenever they're eating. And it comes from the idea that the ostrich is ignoring a dangerous situation, such as hiding from a predator, by trying to hide its eyes and almost pretend as though the situation doesn't exist. So when someone is trying to ignore, avoid, or even hide away from a problem, hoping that it will just magically disappear, they are said to be burying their head in the sand. So for example, Sandra owes £5,000 to her brother, but she continues to spend money on clothes for herself. She's completely avoiding the problem and burying her head in the sand. And finally, let's finish this lesson with an idiom that indicates that something positive is ahead. This is there's light at the end of the tunnel. This simply means that there are signs of hope at the end of a long and difficult period of time. And the idea is that metaphorically, it feels as if you've been in a dark tunnel for a really long time. But then seeing light at the end of it indicates that you can now really see some hope and positive opportunities ahead. So for example, life has been difficult for Tom for such a long time, but he's finally starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So those are just a few idioms that you'll hear being used quite a lot in everyday English conversations. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and do remember to subscribe to receive more videos like this to support you with learning English. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.